She was on this sometimes. And Lindsay only had to teach left. I think it was a teach. So she passed the first day. And we had a couple of other folks that I kind of had more of a tertiary involvement with. They also passed. And then there were a bunch of people that got, like Diego, who's our RMT snowboard person, who was going for his level 2 teach or ski. And he passed the ski, the MA with flying colors, and just absolutely bombed the ski. And we all know why. His feedback was very consistent with what we had been already telling him, which was, in snowboarding, there's a lot of upper body movement. That's how you twist to move the board around. And unfortunately, that translates into skiing quite a bit. So we leg motion, but that just didn't. It's just not enough time. That's such a very nuanced thing to do later on. When you're skiing and trying to instill that into somebody whose patterns are. He's an RMT. He's on the eds. He's going to ed staff here in the next couple of years. He's our lead trainer. That's very difficult for a change like that. But he was like, he's never been so ecstatic in his life for a fail. It was hilarious. So anyway, anybody have a good time this week? What have you guys been teaching? Let's start with that. Anybody got any cool lessons they would like to share? No,
Well,
nothing cool.
Oh, never evers.
Yeah.
And I had a group of we're so packed because it's holidays, so that
Right.
we have groups of 7, and I actually managed to get all of them making connected turns at the end of 2 hours, so 3 hours.
Right.
And just coming down what we call the chicken wing and the carpet, which is fairly steep for newbies.
Right. Cool. Good.
And one of the things that I'd like to talk about a little bit more is focusing more on the wedge and the inside leg, the inside ski on the wedge. If we
Right.
could talk about that.
Inside leg movement?
Yeah, because I found kind of almost consistently I had multiple lessons of, groups of 7 never evers for the last few days. And a lot of them, if we're in the wedge and you say, okay, release the inside leg by tipping the knee so that that ski is flat and moves, and it just moves and they lose the wedge.
Right.
And then they get into this white thing and totally disconfabulated.
Right.
So what suggestions do we have to flatten that inside ski to start the turn, but then not go off in space?
Go off. Cool. Anybody got any ideas there? I know I don't have to be the only one who speaks.
Rebecca, I can tell you that for my level 1 candidates that I'm training, they are suffering from the same thing to a smaller degree, but they're suffering from the same thing. What I found benefited them yesterday when I was training them was working on a lot of flexion and extension moves. That helps them flatten the ski and get them moving across them the way they should be. So you may want to think about really working on flexion and extension type drills.
With never evers?
Even with never evers, if you can get them. In the old days, they used to call it the M1 and M2 move. The M2 being the flattening of the ski to pull you into that new turn. That's a bit of flexion and extension there. I would work on it. even with never evers.
I would say, Rebecca, it would depend on the age range that you're teaching. If you're teaching children, you probably want to use games
Yeah,
and
no,
take
I'm
the
adult.
technical talk. Oh, I see.
No, they're adults? Okay, cool. I can give you my answer. This is how I do it. I got to get them balanced over the outside ski. I got to figure out ways to get them balanced on that edge, on that outside ski edge. And frankly, it's terrifying, right? Why do people cling to the wedge for so long? Because it's safe. But we got to be able to get out onto the outside edge or outside ski. So one of the things I like to work on with kids and adults, doesn't matter, is just get them into a straight run, something on easier terrain where they can, and just see how long they can lift the inside leg without turning, just a march step, right? And figure out how to do that. And then once they get the confidence to kind of align over the outside, over that one ski that they're standing on, you know, in both directions, then they should have more success moving the inside ski. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I'll try that tomorrow.
Yeah. But, you know, the other thing is that, you know, everything in skiing is kind of a little bit terrifying, right? So what do people do when they get in trouble? Right? They kind of
You go to
go
the back.
Go back.
They go back, they stiffen up, right? They got all these things that happen and they go on edge. You know, I taught a bump class today. They have bump clinics here at Winter Park, and I got the advanced intermediate group. And one of the things they do when they get a little bit scared is they go, right? They get real stiff, and all of a sudden that gets them up on edge. And everybody knows that edging into bumps is probably not going to be a recipe for success. And it's no different than when you're working with kids first time or adults first time trying to balance over one ski. They're going to cling back to, you know, want to get back on edge. They're going to want to put the ski down. They just got to figure out how to be more comfortable balancing. And then really, how does that tipping movement happen? How do we balance over that ski? You know, and there's an upper body that has to move, you know, upper body has to counterbalance against the lower body in order to lift up that inside ski. And takes them out of their comfort zone a little bit. It's a lot easier with kids than it is for the adults. Let's put it that way, because kids will try anything. So
Yeah, and their kids are fearless and they're
they
closer
don't
to
know
the
fear because they're and then my take on that is it's not that they're fearless, is that this is how they learn everything, right? They're not afraid to fail because failure is part of everything that they learn, especially in motor control.
What about bumper turns and having your students lift up
Bumper,
the
yeah.
tail of their ski as they go across the hill?
I would do that next, right? I would do that next, where they would bounce again. It's the same principle of balancing on that new ski.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And how do we align over it? We have to align over it. And you may have to tell them, we got to align, we got to hike up the hip, we got to move ourselves so that, you know, because if we don't do any of that, we just right back over. It's just a constant thumping of the inside. How do we balance over that ski?
What about for somebody like as a never ever doing the crab, where you are directing pressure to that outside ski and you're on edge, but the other ski is flat? That seems like a really simple
Crab
way.
walks? Yeah,
Crab walks.
crab walks.
That they have to be, that's a thought. I mean, I think they have to be ready to do that.
Yeah, they're
Right.
in their wedge and you're just
Oh.
having them, you know, tilt this
Yeah.
the ski that's going to be outside ski, and then they see, oh yeah, I go shooting off in this, you know, diagonally across the
Yeah.
hill, and my other ski is flat. And then
Right.
try it the other side.
Yeah, we used to call those shifties.
So
So
though that's
You're like this, and then you would shift to one side, you shift to the other side, right? You flatten the one ski and you get on edge, and the ski just kind of drags you this way. You would
yeah,
shift.
and they're actually directing pressure you know, so they're starting to extend that leg. But I think that is so much easier than thumper turns or outside ski turns. I've been
Mhm.
trying to my
Outside ski turns I don't recommend outside ski
They're
turns.
not, never ever is not ready for outside
no, they're
ski
not
turns.
ready for
But
anything like that.
crap walk, they might be in very flat terrain. I think,
Yeah.
thank you, that's a really good thought.
Yeah,
I've been working a lot with taking people that have been skiing, but they're still in a wedge and getting them to you know, trying to get them to parallel. And so I've been focusing on two things. One is the inside ski, you know, just really learning how to do the bow tie, you know, so that you could learn to turn that inside ski into the circle or turn it out. You know, it's an external rotation. But that's one part of it. And then the other part is really directing pressure to that outside ski. So the inside ski is light and you
yeah,
can do that maneuver. Um, and then of course there's the upper body separation. So there's a lot of different things that come with that, you know, with trying to progress people in that direction.
exactly. Exactly. You have to get them aligned over that ski. You have to get them aligned body part wise over that balance point. So yeah,
I've
I
had a
don't
hard time
recommend
getting
outside ski turns.
getting
That
people
would
to
be a
just
disaster. Thumpers are easy because at least you have something to balance against. But you could probably get them maybe into the turn to kind of lift up. Another one I like to do. Oh, this is a great one I use all the time. When I'm in wedge turns, I'll have them making wedge turns and then I'll just have them hover the inside ski. How can they balance? Now they're trying to concentrate on lifting the inside ski and just hovering it. I don't care whether it's this far off the snow or this far off the snow. Doesn't matter to me. But there, what I'm looking for is that sensation, that feeling of balancing on this while trying to get pressure off of this. Does that make sense? That's a really effective one too. I've had good success with that one. That's more like little kids, already have that wide stance. And they, the wide stance makes it really hard for them to balance over the outside ski when when they have such a wide stance. So they can hover the inside ski too. That's another really good one too. All right.
All right, thanks everyone.
Is that enough ammo for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just roll the dice, see what happens.
Rebecca, I would throw one more thing out there that most people don't spend enough time doing. I call them wedge change-ups. I don't know what the rest of people call them. That's where you're going straight down the hill and you do wide wedges, straight runs, wedge, straight runs. You never stop, but you do a series of wedges and straight runs as you go down the hill. And it teaches them how to actually rotate their legs. And most people just do it a time or two so they've got speed control, and then they start to take them over and start doing turns. If you spend more time with that and make sure that they're very balanced on 2 feet, you're going to have an easier time teaching them to steer 1 foot. Because when you're in a wedge, all you're really doing is rotating just 1 foot. And to give them a feel of it, provided their boots are fitting correctly, when you're in a wedge, your inside edges are engaged. And when you rotate one leg, it basically starts to flatten it. A quick way to give them that feel once we've done a lot of wedge change-ups is actually just get out of your skis and go step on, say, the left ski to flatten it. And it's a very little movement they're going to have to do to rotate that left leg to go. And by stepping on the ski, it takes it from the edge and it flattens it, and it'll give them that feeling, provided they're still balanced on 2 feet. And the way we get them balanced is to do a lot of these wedge change-ups.
Yeah, I do those, but maybe not enough.
Well, I think that what he's indicating, there's a different focus. It's just the idea of turning the feet. So yeah, cool. Good
And that's
idea.
really all wedges are. We're we're steering our feet like this. And because we have those stiff boots on, when we do that, you widen your feet out and you immediately go to those edges. Provided your boots are fitting and you're not trying to be hyper bow-legged going down the hill, which some people are.
I've had a few of those. I've had a lot of, it seems like lately I've had a lot of people who were, like had lower leg bowing.
Uh-huh.
A lot of that recently.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fun ones are the people that water ski a lot.
Yeah, that's true. All right, cool. Let's get started. So this was a video that was shot by Kate of me. I haven't really looked at this at all. I mean, I looked at it once and I was more of a kind of a general look. So I haven't really looked at it that much. And I'm going to hope that we have enough bandwidth that this will pop up and we'll be able to see this accurately. All right. So you guys are going to have to tell me whether it's choppy or not.
It's choppy.
Choppy.
Oh, golly. All right, let me see if I can shrink it down a little bit. Come on. Come on. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
These were medium radius performance turns.
Except you keep skiing off the top of the video.
She was just trying to shoot video of the feet. And I kept going faster and faster.
Well, then you lost the ability to control your speed from top to bottom of the hill, Chuck.
No, I did not. I was going the same speed the whole time. I don't think she was expecting me to go that fast.
Looks like Winter Park's got a lot of snow.
Oh my God, it's snowing like crazy right now. Like they're talking 12 to 15 inches by tomorrow morning.
Wow.
Wow.
Boy, they've really run up. It was 7 to 14 here in Dillon.
Oh,
And
sounds
traffic
like,
is pretty much at a stop. You can't get on I-70, you can't get on Highway 6, you can't go over the pass. I barely made it home.
Right. That's why I was so late. And then I actually had to take somebody to their house. All right. What do you guys notice? What do you see?
I love how you're progressively tipping from the lower legs, creating angles starting from the lower leg shaft to the upper leg shaft, and then from the hips to stay aligned to that outside ski, and then flexing in to be able to bring the skis back underneath you on your turns.
Cool.
Keeps you over. Yeah.
How would it be better, Alex?
The only slight thing that might just be the camera angle is that it seems to be towards the finish phase of the turn. You tend to be seems to be a tiny bit more over the tiniest bit over the tails, and you have to move across more at the start of your turn. It just might make it smoother to enter your turns if you're a little less flexed at the knee at the end of the turn.
Cool. I mean, I see a million things because this is obviously me. Right? I see what you're saying there, but I'm also saying, why do I hang on there? Why am I hanging on there? Right? Why
Yeah.
am I hanging on there? It shouldn't be more progressive, right? It should be like tipping in and then tipping out. I tend to like hang on too long.
And maybe some more leg length change just to get a little bit more edge angle.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is? I thought I was doing that.
That's always me, to be fair. I always
Right?
think, yeah.
I thought I was like here. Right?
Chuck,
But
when
that
you
was
say,
really what my focus was on, that idea of inside leg movement.
Nice. Well, that part went well.
What else do you guys see?
can I ask you a question? When you say hang on, are you, oh, what?
On my edge is too long.
So versus completing the turn?
Yeah, right. I should be releasing earlier. Right? I should be releasing at the same time I'm moving across the hill.
That's the same thing I got called out on a
Yeah.
couple of days ago, Chuck, is hanging on a little bit too long.
Yep.
And the advice I was given was just keep turning your skis. So sort of skiing more rectangular rather than square.
Yeah. I was trying to be, they were supposed to be like medium radius performance turns instead of, these ended up being more arky than I probably wanted. So think I could have, I think you're right. I think I could have benefited from, sorry, I'm getting like a lot of emails all of a sudden. I could have benefited from a little bit of skid. What else are you guys noticing?
Well, they're dynamic.
Are they? What
Well,
makes you, what, I mean, ask.
yeah, I think so.
I'm not, let me ask it a little different way, okay? That sounded confrontational, I'm sorry. What makes you think they're dynamic?
Oh, well, I think the short leg, long leg. Um,
Okay,
and also seeing the edge angle and the kind of angulation of your body.
cool.
But the overall feeling is energetic and dynamic.
Constantly moving.
Cool.
And nice round turns. I mean, they're you're getting your upper part of the turn is looking similar to your bottom part of the turn.
You have separation of the upper and
I'm sorry.
the, I said you have separation.
You're breaking up, Alona. I'm sorry.
Oh, am I sorry? I said you have separation of the lower body. Down.
Okay, cool.
We can't hear you, Iona.
Oh, sorry. I see it. I don't know why.
Still can't hear you.
What did Leona say?
I think she said there was some separation between the upper and lower body. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Simultaneous engagement. Simultaneous. You're shaking around.
Are you polling? Because it looks like you touch the pole on the right, but not on the left. Or is that just the video?
I think that might be me.
Hmm.
Right. I'll pull on the left. Sometimes I don't pull at all. Oh, there's a pull there.
Yeah, no, you're polling on the right, but not on the left.
Yeah. For left-hand turns.
Yeah.
I would say probably sometimes. All right. Hey, at least I'm not double pole planting anymore.
Double pole planting actually gets you into a nice angulation.
It does. Unfortunately, it's frowned upon by PSIA.
How
You're
come?
correct. But it took me a long time to break that habit of double pole planting. Because, you know, it was something that we did in the 90s for racing, just like we always did that.
How come PSIA doesn't approve of that now?
Good question, right? It could be, you know, PSIA, sometimes it's about aesthetics. So, and it might not be a functional piece that moves me down the hill. And that's a big thing for them is make sure that the pole plants move the center of mass across and down the hill. Mike, go ahead if you're ready.
Only if you want. Okay, I'll shut up.
Let's keep it within the audience's understanding. Let's do it that way. All right.
Okay, but your goal here was performance,
Yes.
medium radius parallel turns.
Yes.
So you're correct. They are a little edgy, but not overly so.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not too concerned about that. I like the fact that you're taking it down the hill, you're moving. The shape of the turn itself is fairly rounded, which is great, but there's also a long finish with it.
Yeah.
To make these a better turn, you can see how you say you hang on to the turn a
Yes.
little bit at the end, you kind of get posy.
Yep.
If you watch the flexion and extension, your turn starts with both legs rapidly extending and then both legs rapidly flexing. And then
Yes.
you hold that flex pose.
And then I hold the flex.
You
Exactly.
hold the flex. So you need to slow that flex down just as you need to slow the extension
Right.
down.
Yes.
Speed wise, both of those things need to happen.
You know, and the funny thing about this video is it looks really slow, doesn't it?
You're moving down the hill at a pretty good
I
clip.
am freaking flying. This is Larry Sale, right?
Yep.
I am flying. Matter of fact, Kate's having a hell of a time catching up, right? So there's a lot of forces that are happening, and this cross under piece that happens is happening really, really rapidly. And I was trying to slow that down, but I don't think I was very successful at that. So all the things that Mike was pointing out, there is an extension piece, right? Even though I was trying to be retraction, but it happens really quickly. And the skis move from one side to the other pretty rapidly.
Yes. So, you know, to change this, knowing you and watching you ski some, I would really encourage you to learn to use your legs independently.
What?
So towards the finish of the turn, instead of both legs extending, have the outside leg shorten, and what will be the new outside leg lengthen. So you're starting the turn with what will be the new inside leg getting shorter and the new outside leg just being short. So the legs will start to, instead of both legs doing this, one side will get shorter and the other will go a little longer.
100% agree.
And start working this way.
Exactly.
And then if you hold the end of that turn a little longer instead of a traverse like you're using here for the finish, bring them uphill a little bit more. That will allow your body to cross over the ski and maintain your counter through the transition.
Cool.
because you lose it at the transition. You square up.
Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah.
So
And
you're
my-
talking about softening the outside leg before you finish the turn as sort of part of,
As he's moving into the transition, start
yeah.
flexing the outside leg, shortening it, so that when he's in the transition, the new outside leg is starting to lengthen, but his body then will maintain a counter through that transition. So right now he's getting through the transition, both legs extend, and then he dives into the new turn.
Right.
So we want to start the new turn a little bit before transition for Chuck at his level of skiing.
Yes.
And you can tell me to shut up.
And no, and I think you're 100% accurate. And this is really what I was looking for, right? Was that this is exactly the same thing I saw. But, of course, I'm looking at the disappointment. I was like, why am I coming up? I can tell you why I was coming up, because I've been teaching deeps, steeps, and trees and bumps for the last 2 days, right? So the idea of being like really retracty and getting out into the piste, the smooth snow has been kind of not there. So there is an extension movement. That's why I looked at the video and I kind of looked at Kate and went, why am I going up? I have no reason to go up. Why am I going up? And part of that is why I'm hanging on.
Yep. So, Chuck is a really refined skier here. He's got a lot of good stuff doing. So I'm being kind of nitpicky at our level here. But if you guys don't see that, have Chuck put some stills in there. Have him stop it on some of those movements.
Okay, that would be good.
Because I'm not sure if everybody is seeing what I'm seeing and what Chuck is we're working at a higher level here. So, but to help you guys see it, it might be worthwhile.
So
I see it because I'm suffering from the same thing.
I'm sorry, AJ.
So here, and it's not very much, right?
No, he's a very refined skier.
It's very, we're talking about tiny little bits, right?
Yep.
I like this, right?
But if you go back just a couple of frames there, Chuck, you were showing the skis flat, which is your transition. You can see everything is aligned. And there should be an upper and lower body separation at that transition, which wasn't there.
So it's right there. There's a
See how
flat.
everything, now the skis are starting to go, but the body is still aiming across the hill. But just before that, because the skis are starting to tip on edge now, but just before that, you could see the body align. And one of the things they're looking for basic parallel turns, even if they're dynamic here, is there upper and lower body separation at transition? And in this case, the answer is no.
No. You want to ski in and out of counter.
But a nice active inside leg there.
That was the main focus. That's my focus for the year.
Well, in that case, what I said was wrong, because your intent was to get an active inside leg and you did that. So you can just ignore everything I said.
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. I think all of this is synonymous. All right. Anyway, too much of me, not enough of others.
Mike, can I ask a question?
Yeah, there you are, Leonard.
Hi, finally I figured out why I was not being heard. I kept saying stuff and nobody heard me. Anyway, am I correct in saying that the greatest point of upper and lower body separation is essentially the latter part of the transition as you're sort of diving into the next turn? Is that correct?
There needs to be upper and lower body separation there.
Is that the greatest amount of separation during the turn, or is there some other point where it's greater?
Depends on what you're doing.
I see.
I think from an overall standpoint, the greatest amount of separation you're probably looking for should be at the initiation.
Which is right about just after the transition.
Just after transition. So right there,
Yes.
There's where you should have the greatest amount of separation.
Right.
And we don't see much there.
I
Not,
see.
not enough.
Thank you.
Probably why I was hanging on at the bottom of the turn. That's the kind of thing. I wasn't squeezing the lemon out of the lemonade out of the lemon. You know what I mean? This way, like, no, you can't see it, but cupping the inside leg, being more over that leg, okay, resisting the forces. And it's kind of ironic because I think one of the things I want to do this year is I want to start doing more pistol squats and strengthening the outside leg so I can allow that leg to gather more pressure and I can resist that pressure better. But I don't feel like I do that well. You know, I don't feel like I do that well. There's a lot of good things here. There's a lot of things I could just nitpick myself to death with. So anyway, somebody else sent me a video.
I did.
Paul sent me a video. Paul, are you ready? Is Paul on the call?
Yep, I'm in.
All right, there you are. Which one is it? Video? There it is. All right, I found it. And this is of you?
It is
Cool.
early season,
Early season?
like fourth day on skis. So
Or are you at a clinic?
yeah, race camp at Killington.
Cool.
You know, I don't like to talk about people until they've got at least 6 to 10 days on their skis.
Yeah,
Because, you know, we're still figuring things out. It takes that many days for all your habits to kick in and you get comfortable.
So what do you see here, Paul?
The-
I mean,
the goal, like-
part of this MA is also some honesty about yourself,
sure.
right?
Um,
You know what I mean?
You know, take that one step further in the current exams and that they're going to watch you come down the hill and do an evaluation of yourself to test your understanding.
Right.
the goal was just some mixed mixed turns, some mediums, short, whatever we wanted to do. There was really no guidance on that. So I was
So they just told you
pretty
to
much doing mostly medium to short radius. A little too much up and down movement, which I've been working on. Pole touches looked okay. One of the focuses that week was on keeping our shoulder angle similar to the slope of the hill, and I thought I did an okay job on that.
Mm.
And for early season, it wasn't too bad.
Do you remember by any chance do you remember what your intent was when you did this?
Yeah, again, it was just free ski in front of the camera. They didn't really give us
Free ski in
anything.
the camera?
Yeah.
Do you remember anything like what you were thinking? Like, please don't kill myself. Please don't aim at the trees. Whatever you do, stand on the outside leg more, or is anything like that?
Again, it was a month and a half ago. Don't really remember.
Okay, no, that's fine. I mean, that we always like to kind of have some kind of idea of what the intent was.
Yeah.
So for me, like I said, on the last turns, it was really trying to make sure that I have some inside leg activation at the turns, maybe to the point where I forgot to get off my edges once in a while. like every turn.
Yeah.
But I
One
think
of my,
that's,
one thing I was really trying to focus on my own skiing was, uh, to have the skis parallel and not the tendency to let the tips diverge a little bit. So I was,
no, yeah. Hey, you ought to look at my carve scores.
yeah,
It's they're all when I go to the right, and they all with a little bit that right hand. I'm really working on trying to draw that right hand foot back so I don't do that, right? Because it's
Yeah.
very easy for me to balance. I can balance on the inside leg, and it's not a pressure problem. The problem is I just like to align my leg to the upper body. Cool. So I'm going to give you some things I like.
okay,
Okay? Honestly, there's a little bit of up.
Yeah.
But I've seen way worse.
okay,
Okay. I don't think it's that bad. And it's more on one side than the other. Okay. I think for the most part, the turns are they're not like really quick. You know, it's not like the typical Z shape that we like to see, or we like to see that we normally see in our guests, right? You're trying to be very deliberate with the shape of the turn. I like that. And I would encourage you to keep doing that. Okay. You did mention something about the pole plant.
yeah,
I think probably could be more deliberate where
Yeah.
you put the pole plant, which would help you direct your upper body into the new turn. I think it's a little bit matter of fact, and frankly, it's a little late.
it's a little late. Yep, I can see that.
Okay. And I'm curious, do you have like one leg that's more injured than the other?
Yeah, but having lower back problems on the right side.
Yeah, so the right side really kind of like you're trying not to hurt yourself.
Exactly.
Okay. It does not show at all.
Oh, okay.
I would be lying. That was one of the first things I noticed is okay, one turn is not the same as the other, and there's a little bit more of an angle that were kind of being built on your right hand turns, but your left hand turns, it's kind of like reach, please don't hurt, please don't hurt, please don't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And so the pole plant piece for me kind of speaks to if I was going to go to a fundamental with you,
Mhm.
knowing that you're working with you, if I had to work with you, I would be working with you probably to avoid, without knowing more about your back, I would like to work with you on moving more along the length of the ski earlier. Does that make sense?
Mhm, mhm.
You tend to be a little static. Anybody else got anything they'd like to add into this?
Yeah. I'm seeing some inclination. It's putting some unnecessary weight and force on the inside ski at kind of the wrong time.
Okay, which turn?
Let's see.
Ones to the right or the ones to the left?
Well, I just saw it on the one to the left. Let's see.
Yeah,
I think it's more this one that's going to the left.
it's the ones going to the left.
Yeah, do you see the weight on that inside ski right there? It's
Actually,
more,
this is a moment in time. He's kind of aligned over that outside ski because it looks like he's kind of tipped the inside knee in a little bit, which will help him take pressure off. But when he gets to about here, I think that's what you're seeing.
yes.
Right? And that's why I was asking a very pointed question about injuries, you know, because he's trying to protect himself. And that's probably the result of that, you know. Unfortunately, we're men of a certain age.
Yes.
70 is not a fun age.
I know the feeling. I had 3 spine surgeries within 8 weeks within 8 weeks in 2022. And I just sent a message to Paul that I couldn't even free ski after my lesson yesterday because I was in too much back pain. So I'm with you, brother.
Yeah. No, I got a friend of mine who's going for his L3, and he's got such issues right now with his hip and his spine, kind of that lower lumbar, and his ability to tip on one side is not dissimilar from what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Okay. And he knows about it, and he's like, I'm not sure what I could do that's different because it's endemic in the, it's cooked into the meal now, right? He's going to have to deal with it. But you're going for L2, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so, yeah, this turn right here is different
That looks, yeah,
than this turn here.
yeah, yeah.
Can I ask a question, Chuck?
This
When you have inclination, I guess without angulation, is that, do you see that because the inside leg is extended?
Well, in this case right here, so this is an interesting illustration of what this inside activation is happening because the inside ski is actually physically pointing to the inside, but it looks as though he is actually aligned more over the outside leg. Okay. Would I like him to be more aligned over the outside leg? Yes. But I've seen this same position in PSIA examiners at the top of the turn like this. So this is not detrimental to me. I want to see more. And it's when he gets to here that I'm like, okay, cool. Now he's aligned over both skis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had nice inside because you can kind of see how that inside leg is kind of leading the turn. I like that. That's something that's difficult for people to understand. And I don't know whether that's something that he's consciously working on or if this is just something that's baked into the way he skis. But
Yeah.
when he gets to here and the pressures build, now he's kind of in trouble. Right? Because he doesn't realign over the outside leg. He has an opportunity to do it here, but he doesn't get it done.
Yeah. So how do you tell he's not doing that? I mean, it looks like his outside leg is more
Because he
extended.
continues, because right here, he's inclined, right? He's inclining in.
Yeah.
There's almost no pressure to be felt here. Right?
In the
He's
outside
kind of-
ski.
This is what we like to call tumbling or falling into the turn.
Okay. Or banking.
Banking. Well, banking, banking. This is not what I would consider banking yet. Because I like the inside leg. It doesn't look like it's like totally pressured. This is banking because he doesn't build the angles.
Okay. Because his trunk is leaning in,
Should
not
be.
straight up and down.
This is not the problem at the top of the turn, right? But he should be, by the time he gets at this position, he should be this way. He should be angled over that leg, right? So he ends up being on the inside leg, which is what Leonard was pointing out.
Okay. And
This
if you
side
see
is
if you see
better.
the outside leg moving, like kind of pushing
Yeah,
out.
it's kind of moving away.
Yeah.
Right? That's why that separation. So his legs are nice and close to here. He gets to here, and then the outside leg drifts away. Because he's balanced kind of on the inside leg too.
Okay.
When he gets to here, see how the outside leg doesn't really drift because he's built some angles. And he's more aligned over that ski.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I was very pointed about whether he has an injury or not.
Yeah, you nailed it.
And if we really wanted to be very specific, his shoulders and his pelvis are aligned, right? They're not necessarily aligned to the hill yet, but they don't have to be at this point, but they should be now. It's very, very quick in his body, and unfortunately his shoulder and his hips are still this way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we need to be more like this, right?
Yeah.
But you do a better job on this side. Now the hip, even though it could be more like this, it's still more aligned to the hill. Okay.
A quick question for us old guys. I had lumbar fusion 2 years ago, and I know it's affected a lot of different parts of my skiing. So I know I incline more than I used to
Right.
guard that lower back with inclination. Any suggestions on for our own MA personally, and also if we were to get a person that might have an injury like this, or guarding an injury?
Well, always be, I mean, this is a very, very good illustration of when I see this, and I see it often, right? And I have to ask that question. Hey, tell me about your injury history, right? And then I have to make some judgments about their movements in a way where I don't, one of the big things about teaching more higher level is that you never want to take away anything from them. Hey, Leonard, I need you to be aligned over both skis like this, right? Well, what am I taking away? Well, I'm putting him in an impinged position that's going to re-injure him. I gotta look at him and go, are there different ways that I could get him to get the performance that he wants without hurting him? Okay. Is that in the direction you want to go, Joel? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah,
like
I guess for prescription,
Right.
specifically, what would you recommend?
Well, I got to interview him, right? And then we got to talk about his injury. I got to know what his injury is. And I got to know if we are talking about a long leg, short leg, and now we got to balance over that. And if I do ask him to open up that hip to the laterally, is this going to put him in an impinged position? Right? Right? And because remember, the pelvis is like a horizontal beam and like a lumbar comes out of there, right? And if I ask him to balance this way over it, it might do this. I have to be really careful about that because it will start the lumbar is what we like to call it's not a mobility joint, it's a stability joint. And it's why you have to protect it because you can't twist it, you can't bend it. It bends very little, it twists very little. All this thoracic, this is the thoracic, which is above the lumbar region. We don't want to mess around with the lumbar region. And Kimberly can speak about that a lot. Well, hello yoga, right? Right? I mean, the whole point is when we're doing those kind of twisty bendy things, that it happens in those mobility joints and doesn't happen very much in those stability joints. Does that make sense? I know way too much.
You
My
know,
God.
Chuck is saying some really good things, and Kimberly can correct me as well. But most people, when they think about skiing into and out of counter or anticipating a turn, they tend to rotate starting in the lumbar. And there's a lot of little individual joints there, and they all kind of work together to allow you to really rotate, to twist the spine. What most people don't understand is the counters we're dealing with here do not start in the lumbar. It actually starts at the head of the femur in the sockets in your pelvis.
Yeah.
And so if you get in a good skiing stance and you bend forward a little bit, starting at that hip joint, and you the uphill ski should be leading a little bit. That's going to take your pelvis and move it from here to here. That starts the counter movement. And then the spine starts to come into play.
Yeah.
So you don't have to rotate the spine as much as people think, provided we can start our counter at those hip joints.
Mike and Chuck, would it be, I've been trying, is it useful to think about pulling back the inside hip to help facilitate that, or have you not found that to be useful?
I think that would be a good question for our guest, Paul. Sorry, Paul. That would be a good question for him. That would be a good question that maybe we could explore that on snow.
Mhm.
I find when I'm not skiing into counter, the first thing, like lately, because I hadn't skied much for about 5 years, what sort of got me there at that point between the transition and the start of the initiation, was to just think about like physically pulling it back so that I get that, get my hip kind of more facing down the hill and less facing, in the direction of my skis.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's just me and my physiognomy or if that's a general thing.
No, it's not. So I think what you're trying to do is realign your hips to your upper body.
Yeah. Are you talking about a pelvic tilt, just tilting your pelvis forward?
I was thinking about, I'm trying to think about it here, that I actually pull my hip, the inside side of my hip back, which allows, my femurs can still be pointing that way, but then my hips are now pointing in the new direction of travel, just by
Yes.
pulling that hip back.
Yes. Yes. You know what we call that?
What?
Hip hike.
Oh, right. I heard that several years ago in a PSIA clinic.
Yeah. That's the hip hike.
Hip hike, yes.
Deb
Helps us.
Armstrong just had a whole thing on that.
Yeah. And you know what? I used that today in a lesson because I was trying to get this girl who was in a bump clinic, she comes from a racing background where she's really, really solid and easily moves from one ski to the other. But her ability to release the skis was like not even in existence, right? So her ability to flatten the skis is just not there. And so I was trying to like talk to her about it. It's like, hey, we want to kind of release the leg. We want to kind of, how do we shorten the inside leg to allow that to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then I just had that eureka moment of right after lunch of going, hey, let's try the hip hike. And it was like magic. She just needed it in a different way.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank God. Honestly, I think it was Deb Armstrong's video that probably made it pop in my head.
I remember, is that the one where she's up on steps?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
But she just released a new one.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
She was
just
talking
released
about
it today.
it was a hip hike
Just released it
for-
today. I saw the video about a couple hours before I came on, and I was like, "Oh, this makes sense." And
Yeah. It was like hip hiking or hip movement for
intermediate skiers, I think, is what the title of the video is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Something of that
it's
nature.
The hip lift.
hip
Yeah.
lift.
I'm also getting a lot of benefit out of that 3-part series she did with Alain Veth of
Wow.
Taos.
My God, that is gold.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's improved my
That's-
skiing in the last week tremendously.
It was just, that's like a book worth of stuff, right? I mean, he just goes on, and it's like magic moment after magic moment. So I would encourage everybody to kind of watch those videos and distill them down because they're really amazing.
Yeah. I spent a week on just the first one before I even moved to the second one.
Any questions? Alex, you got that look on your face like, what the hell? Go.
Just
go.
curious, how do you protect the lumbar more?
what we don't want to do is we don't want to do this.
Okay.
Allow the pelvis to try to move the lumbar, because the lumbar is actually, it comes out of the pelvis in a T. Okay. And when we start trying to do this with our pelvis, while the upper body stays here, am I even doing that? Am I even in a frame here? There we go. So here is the pelvis and here is the lumbar. We can't do this with the lumbar. It won't allow us to do it, right? So what we do is we get this tilt. And that tilt puts a lot of pressure on the lumbar. So we want to make sure that we keep the lumbar aligned and not try to do this with our pelvis. Does that make sense?
Question, wouldn't you wanna, and when you're stabilizing the hips and making that hip hike, won't that create an angle there?
Great question. Because when we do the hip hike, our whole body goes down the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the magic of that one. So I was trying to get her to release the inside ski.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I just got to get her to move the body down the hill that will naturally flatten the skis. And that will get her moving down the hill.
And if you get too caught up at overflexed in the knee and stationary through
Right.
transition, that's when that happens where it twists more.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Trust me, your body will probably say no. Yeah. Because that's a very delicate area. Where does all that come from? All that of our, all of our back problems come from is from that lumbar region. It's probably usually because we don't stabilize it enough, or we don't have the muscles to stabilize it.
It says much worse words than no, by the way.
Yeah.
But Chuck brought up a very good comment there, that we don't stabilize it enough.
Yeah.
That really infers that for skiing at our levels, we actually need a very strong core. And the core isn't just in the abs. It goes down into the upper thighs, it goes up into the chest, and it goes all the way around. So it includes the glutes, the lower back muscles, the backstrap muscles, up into the thoracic muscles, and down the hamstrings. That's all part of your core.
Yeah.
And if you think of the pelvis as a big goblet, we're trying, and it's full of a very expensive wine, you're trying not to spill it. And you'll see a lot of women that they tend to roll their pelvis from the back forward, and it puts a really big divot in the lumbar spine. And so what we need to do is tighten up the glute muscles to bring the pelvis to this area, which starts to round out the lumbar spine, and it pulls stress off the lumbar at that point. And then when we talk about putting, angulating with the upper body to balance over that outside ski, many people think it's strictly a lateral movement, which is really hard on the lumbar spine. What it is it's a forward movement at the hip flexors, and starting at the hip flexors, then there's a slight rotation there. That's going to move the uphill part of the pelvis forward, and there's where your counter starts again. But now you're actually bent forward to help round out the lumbar spine, bring the core muscles into play, and then if you need to add a little more rotation, you're only adding a little more. I'm not starting from here and then rotating this way with the lumbar. The first part that moves is the pelvic girdle, and then the lumbar starts to rotate up into the thoracic spine. So those are some ways we can protect that lumbar sacral area.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, and by the way, the pelvis has also got the two iliacs, right? The two kind of like flat pieces. You guys know what I'm talking about on the skeleton, right?
The hip bone.
Guess what attaches to all those iliacs? like 120 different muscles
Oh,
attached to those iliacs, right? So that's that same, going back to the same idea of really having a strong core and really stabilizing that pelvis and not allowing it to tip, allowing the lumbar to tip one way or the other. That's another fast. Mike brought up a point about how women sometimes have that reverse pelvic tilt, right? Which is kind of a problem, but they also have the ability to tilt this way a lot because they tend to be more flexible in this area, but it puts them in a very compromised position. And we want to make sure that, as Mike said, we tilt forward and then move this way. Does that make sense? So that we are in a strong position instead of trying to do it like this, which puts all that pressure on. This is my pelvis. I'm gonna move this way. If I go this way, now I'm putting a lot of pressure on the lumbar area. Cool?
So Kimberly, do you have anything to add since this is kind of in your forte here?
Well, this has been the problem I've been trying to overcome. And I have had back problems. And a lot of it was coming from overarching my lower back. So, and then in skiing, that really puts you in the back seat. So, because your knees are bent, and your hips are back. So I have to kind of, it's almost like I'm, my back, it feels like I'm rounding my back.
Yep. Yep.
But I'm bringing my core back to my lumbar and keeping my butt underneath me. And then I'm also strong in the back of my arms.
Right.
So it's something I have to really focus on because it's so easy to go back to this other position, and I'm not having back problems anymore. So, I don't have any back pain to tell me like, you're moving in the wrong direction.
So a tight core or tight glutes and pulling your navel into your spine.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the arms, being kind of firm.
Mm-hmm.
So, after all these years of yoga, I'm quite flexible. And so I really have to balance that with stability.
But
and
with the
firmness.
yoga, when you're doing your poses and that, they do talk to you an awful lot about tightening the glutes and rounding out that lower lumbar area a little bit.
Yeah.
And what most people don't understand is they start thinking, my God, I got all of this tension in this lower part of my core. But if you guys all stand up, pull your navel into your spine, tighten your glute muscles so that it starts to take your pelvis and rotates it back a little bit, you'll find you've got a lot of range of motion with your legs. It doesn't disappear.
That's the cat in the cat-cow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Or the cow. We want the cow, not
Right.
the cat.
Yeah, that's right. We want the cow. Yeah, we don't want this. We want that.
We want that. And we always, in skiing, we call it hugging the barrel, right? Because the barrel's round like this, and we got to hug the barrel with our arms and legs,
Yeah.
right? That's another way to look at it. I can't emphasize this enough. When we're in yoga classes, it is 100% all the time. I hear constantly, pull your navel to your back, pull the navel to the back. And it puts you in a very, very strong position. Even when you're standing and just doing your standing poses, right? You got to tilt the pelvis. It's really, really easy for you to tilt it back, but it puts you in a very bad position.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the whole point of downward dog. That's why it's a core movement, right? A core position. I don't like the position. I like to talk about how we move in and out, but yeah, you got to pull your navel in. You got to pull that part so that you flatten the back.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's a lot of biomechanics. You guys just got a lot of biomechanics today.
Sorry about that.
And
No, actually, that's been very good. I like that.
I found a video of myself, and even though I'd been working on that, it was still pretty prominent. So that was a little discouraging.
Well, don't do that anymore then.
Yeah, I'm trying not to, but it's old habits, they die hard, they want to stay with you.
This is one of those things when you're on your skis and on flat ground. How many of you have actually played with where your true athletic stance actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example,
Okay.
let me try.
We just did this one.
Can I still be heard?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
here.
Okay, but when you're just standing in your skis, roll this under
Mm-hmm.
and pull this stance.
Mm-hmm.
And look how much range of motion you have. And then roll the back and push the butt out and try to move. Or flex into the boots just a little bit and then go a little bit more and try to move your legs. So for skiing, we need the ability to move the legs a lot, but you'll find that tight core through here gives us a lot of movement, a lot of lower body mobility. And as soon as we start to move this, roll out the other way or put our weight on one foot versus the other, we start to lose that lower body mobility. And I would encourage you to find just a flat area when you're on your skis next time and play with the stances you see. Play with that stance that's back here. Play with the stance where you see people like this. Play with the stance where you're leaning up the hill, where you're leaning down the hill. And where do you have the most flexibility, the most movement? And you're going to find it's actually a fairly tall stance, feet fairly close together, like under the sit bones, a fairly tight core, and a little bit more weight on the downhill ski. Gives you the most amount of flexibility and mobility in your lower appendages. That even gives you the ability to start to rotate down the hill and balance over the downhill ski. And you still have a lot of mobility foot to foot.
Paul, did you get what you wanted out of this?
We don't have I wrote to Neil said.
Yes, I did. That was really, really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, good, good.
Mike, I'm definitely gonna try that tomorrow when I'm working. When I'm getting before I start working, I'll definitely do that. Just on a flat area because we got a couple flat areas out here at Snow Creek that I can work on that. So definitely gonna work on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and give it a try. And you see the position your clients are in, you know, and they try to bend their knees and ankles, right? But they always try to overdo it, so they throw their butt in. And as soon as they do that, if you do it yourself, you find all of a sudden you can't move your legs anymore. If you leverage too far forward, you can't move your legs anymore.
Same thing if you're too far back, you can't leverage exactly.
Yep. Or if you sink down and try to drive so hard you shove your butt back, all of a sudden you can't move your legs anymore.
Yep.
Play with the hands too. Keep the hands in front of you, and as you pull the hands back, I mean, your arms are 20% of your body weight. You let them come back, where do you think it's going to throw you?
To the back.
Yep.
Yep.
This is all basic. This is all biomechanics. I won't call it basic because for some people, maybe it is. For others, it may not be. But this is all biomechanics and how we move. And if we can start a lot of our alignments, you know, in those hip flexors, a lot of the movements we need there, we can save our lumbar spine quite a bit. Don't start those anticipation moves in the lumbar. Start them in the pelvis, in those hip flexors.
I have one more video.
Oh, God.
I know. Hey, guess what, Mike? It's something that we looked at the RMT one though. So I put the video in the chat so that you can actually look at it. So this one, luckily, it's on YouTube. I'm going to start doing that a lot more now, so that we can watch these things, so we don't have to worry about bandwidth that much. But it's kind of nice to share this anyway. All right, cool. Thank you, Alona.
I've been working on a Beast of a project for you. This is the first video of a 3-part series. The primary
I know. Don't you love ads? All right. And so we should be looking at a guy in a maroon jacket with black and then orange pants. And what we can cipher from his turns, he's doing short radius dynamic parallels. So let's start with what you like. What do you like about this guy?
The color coordination of his suit.
Not this guy. This guy is good. Actually, we'll watch the other guy because I think the other guy, the second guy is like an examiner.
He doesn't have too many turns though.
No, he doesn't, but the movement's really nice. So what do you notice about this guy? What do you like about his turns? Other than his lack of coordination of outfit.
Yeah, good rhythm.
Dynamic movement.
He does seem to ski into counter.
Mm.
Except right there.
And I mean, Lona, why'd you pick this video? What's going on with her?
Yeah.
Sorry, Lona, we're not hearing you.
No, I.
So we hear the first words, and then all of a sudden you kind of like,
I know.
I don't know what's going on.
So I think Leo, he has
You may have to, I'm sorry, this will actually be good practice. Go ahead and put a few words into the chat.
Right. Ilona, you might also have noise suppression on, which sometimes will do that.
Okay. I'll try this. I just changed. So so I felt that he had maintaining a parallel position of his skis. I felt simultaneous engagement. I felt that he engaged.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I still can't hear you very well.
I'll put it in the chat.
Check your sound settings, and if there's some suppression thing going on, maybe just turn it off. Sound settings in Zoom.
Does anybody else want to speak about it?
Yeah, you're gonna hate it though, Chuck.
No, let's keep it to let's keep it to the level of the group.
Yeah, but you know, the reality of it is he's making some dynamic movement patterns, but he's doing short radius turns of what you were doing.
Yeah.
The legs are doing the same thing. The counter is lost at the transition. Basically, this is a more dynamic short radius turn version of what you were doing.
Cool.
Mike, does that mean he's holding on to the turn? Can you explain that a little more specifically so that we neophytes understand?
Yeah, well, watch both legs. Both legs extend to start the turn. Both legs compress at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
The turn happens very quickly. He's in a fairly narrow area, so he's not getting a real long finish, but the finish is still longer than the time he spends in the shaping phase.
I see.
And the shaping phase happens very quickly.
So he's sort
And
of
if you look at
bouncing.
where the pelvis is located as related to the feet at the transition, his pelvis and feet are aligned. This is somebody else that could really use the ability to flex and extend the legs independent of each other instead of at the same time.
So he's really getting around because he's got to bounce from the end of the turn. He's pressing hard on the tails and kind of bouncing to the other side instead of putting his upper body down in the direction of the turn so that the tips can engage right at the beginning.
Yeah, if you watch the start of the turn, there's a little bit of a wash. He's got so much toe pressure that the tails wash and then they engage.
Mhm.
Okay. And if you remember Chuck's, he had that rapid, both legs would extend, the turn would start, then he'd drop real quick. So he got the skis to engage a little higher in the turn, not quite as much drift, but then he just locked it into place. So he was doing a larger radius turn, but when he locked it in place, the bottom part was a lot more of a traverse, not a lot of arc in there. And that was because he ran out of motion.
That makes sense, Leonard?
It does. Thank you very much.
So when he gets to this position here, this is what Mike's talking about. He does an extension movement, but what is on the snow and what is off the snow?
See how the tails are just wiping or literally sliding across the snow. There's
Right.
not much on the snow there.
The tails.
Yep, watch the tails.
The tips are actually on the snow.
He's pivoting around the tips.
I see. So the
See
skis
how
are
he
not
drops
following
and
the
he holds
direction.
that position. He flexes really abruptly, but now he just holds it. He ran out of range of motion.
Right. So the skis are not following the direction of travel. He's sort of pivot. He's got a kind of a bounce that washes out the tails.
Well, the tails are not following the tips.
Yeah.
In Chuck's, his tails were following the tips more than this.
Yeah.
But you see a very rapid extension with both legs and a very rapid flexion with both legs. And then when he gets to the transition, where the legs are roughly the same length and the skis are flat on the snow, you see that his hips are aligned with the skis. There is not an anticipation type movement there. They are not countered.
How come we didn't see all that stuff?
Well, unfortunately, we had the ability to like beat this guy up for like 25 minutes at the RMT level. And there's some other interesting things that are happening too in his skiing, but I'm not really gonna get too involved in that.
Yeah, I think the
It's
other
just-
ones are going to be
it's-
more subtle, but I think they can pick up on both legs extending and compressing at
Yeah.
the same time, and to watch the tails slide to start the turn.
Because this is very obvious to watch. The tails are like window wipers. The
Mhm.
tails move way more than the tips.
But
He's-
what's creating that, Chuck? I mean, my question, hi, it's Rita. But what's
Yeah.
creating that? So you're saying the tails aren't following the tips?
It is a rapid extension because here comes the extension. And he's getting some ski performance, which is helping it too. But there, he's off the ground. He's not engaged in the snow. And then he just
Okay.
allows the heels to come around.
As he's as he's flexing those ankles, which is overdriving the tip of the ski.
Yeah, because the tips are the fulcrum, right? The tips are literally on the snow. So he's just, here's the
So-
tip. And the tip is the tail's just going like this.
So Mike, what's his prescription for change?
Slow the rate of rotation down is the first one that comes to mind.
Right.
The second one I'd be dealing with is the ability to flex and extend the legs independently of each other.
Thank
The
you.
up
both.
movement, the up movement's making it very difficult for him to align over the new outside ski. And if he can't align over the new outside ski, it's very difficult for him to use lower leg angles to start to engage the ski. So he ends up just, watch this guy, because this is accurate. That's an accurate movement there. When we watch him, watch how his tails are moving, but it's kind of rotating from the feet and not the tails. You understand?
Mhm.
There's an extension, but he's not getting a lot of wash.
Yeah, and also notice at that point, his upper body was actually rotated a little more down the hill at that transition than the other gentleman.
Right.
See how his from starting at the pelvis to shoulders, it's already moving down the hill, even though his skis are still going across the hill.
Yeah, that's very clear.
Yep.
So
Another
he was
thing-
maintaining counter. You said, Mike, you said the other guy was not countering.
He didn't have that. He was aligned to his skis at that transition.
Right, so all this guy needs to do is extend that new outside ski, and he's just going in the right direction.
I'm not sure I understand where you're going.
The second guy, because he's set up and countered, and his hips and his upper body are facing the direction he wants to go, all he needs to do on that new ski is just extend it, and then the ski's going to come around. It's going to bite, and it's going to come around, and the tails follow the tips.
Yeah, he's going to be extending a little bit. It's going to be slower. If you watch this gentleman here that we've been watching, he's aligned to his ski, and when he does when his legs extend, that's when his body rotates. And if you watch closely, when his body rotates, you'll see the outside ski rotates faster than the inside ski, and he starts his turns with a slight wedge.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Especially this side.
Yeah.
This side is
Right
way
there.
more evident, right? Because he gets in this kind of artificial countered position on this turn.
Good choice of terms. Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
It's an artificial counter, and it's late.
And then the only way he can get out of it is with a twist. He has to extend the twist.
So he's
Has to.
extending and rotating his shoulders, and watch the leg rotate with him.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
not as prominent. He doesn't get in that fake counter on this side as much, but it's still there. You'll see it a lot more on this turn. Oop, there it is. Which way is his body pointed?
Straight to the trees.
Straight
Right
into
with
the
his
tree.
skis. See, there wasn't a counter there.
Yeah. So he's countering, but we call that fake counter.
Fake counter.
Yeah, or the hip dump. I really didn't want to get into that, but this is a very.
I kept away from it.
I know. But again, it's the same path. This is the cause. So that rapid extension and the twist that he's got to do, that's the cause.
So right now we're looking at a fake counter. And we know this because when his skis and everything aligns up, there's no counter anymore.
So why do you call it a fake counter?
Because he
Watch
put
his hips.
himself in that position. And he doesn't maintain it.
So this is literally the hip dump right there.
You see, he's bringing the hip inside and twisting his shoulders and upper body out.
Uh-huh.
You can see how but now watch what happens when he aligns his skis, when he comes into transition. See how everything is aligned with the skis? So he's lost that counter. So he's creating one after the fall line.
And I'm going to argue that because he uses this hip dump fake counter, and his only way to get out of this is a rapid extension.
Mm-hmm.
He has no choice. Now he's well practiced because at least he's extending down the hill. It's a kind of a sophisticated dolphin turn.
He's very refined with these movements.
Yeah. But he gets to this position and there's that, I would say his upper body slightly pointed down or is to the outside of the too.
And he's got
But
two
all
different
this-
turns. He's very asymmetrical.
And here's a good example of you know, I can start drawing here. I haven't drawn yet.
Oh, got to draw then.
Here's his shoulder, here's his hip. So remember that lumbar thing we were talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So the hip, the shoulder is more level than to the hill than the hips are. That causes his spine to go like, kind of like a bend. And he's very, very good on this side of showing that. Yeah. So Benji goes, what's the link to that video? Because on my end, it looks like the reverse pivot turn. That's a good call, Benji. I like that. But does that make sense to people? Right? There's a lot of cool stuff that's happening here, but the real problem is that because he dumps in, he's got to extend to get out of it, and that's where that rapid extension comes, or that rapid rotation comes from, because he can't meter this ability. So he just goes up, twist, out. Okay? And it ends up looking like a window wiper.
Yep.
Mhm.
And as Chuck says, because he is moving down the hill, you can see him closing his ankles. He's getting a lot of pressure on the tips of those skis, which lightens the tails of the skis when he starts his turn.
Mm.
So if the tails of the skis are light, what happens?
They're gonna wash out like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So he really engages the snow at about the fall line instead of fairly early in the turn, where the other guy in the blue pants starts to engage before the fall line.
So that's you'd slow his rotation down and have him use his legs
Mhm.
more
I'd
independently.
pull a piece out of the IDP. I'd have him start his turns with a white pass turn.
Mm.
You could tell he really likes those like really quick turns at the end. All right. This is just a really nice, those are just 4 or 5 really nice turns.
Yep.
And they're just accurate. The skis always are pointing the same direction. They're just really just nice, and there's continual movement, right?
Look how
Continual
slow the
movement.
flexion and extension is with the
Mhm.
legs.
And it's continuous, right? It's continuous.
So he doesn't just flex and lock. It's a slow flex, and then he moves into the new turn.
And we see the angles match.
Hmm.
In
There's a
both-
lot of things going on with it.
Not just this way, but this way too, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's very, very nice skiing.
See how nothing appears to be rushed?
Right.
And the other gentleman, how things are very rushed? Boom.
Cool. Hey, did you guys find this useful today?
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How many
Very
of
much.
How many of you have videos of yourself? Because I'd like to do this for a couple weeks.
I'm too scared.
Just do it anyway. Hey, I mean, we're not here to tear you apart. We're here to use you as an illustration.
As a
Okay.
guinea pig. And I'm here to
Yeah.
tear you apart.
Okay.
Okay.
You say,
No, I'm
Leonard-
joking.
Leonard, you really suck, right? You need to suck a whole lot less. That's
All right.
right. The point is, let's find some stuff and it'll be useful. There are 2 points of what I'm trying to do here. One of them is there's only a limited number of videos on the internet. Sorry. Number 2 is
Yeah.
we have to have honesty in our own skiing. Okay. I look at the skiing of myself. I can tell you what I like and what I need to work on more. Okay. Right. And Mike pointed out a couple of things that maybe I need to be thinking about also. Okay. So that's useful information for me to go back and say, okay, when I'm doing this next time, how do I execute these turns in a way that's going to be more responsible or more accurate? Okay. So it's not about, hey, gee, Kimberly, maybe you ought to quit the sport. I mean, this is still supposed to be a very safe place.
And again, this is a safe place, and I need to get more video on myself too. But we all have these thoughts on what we think we are doing.
Hey,
And by seeing ourselves on video, that allows us ground truth.
I got some
And that's
video of
real
Mike.
important, right, Dave?
I got some video of Mike.
Let's share some.
I've taken my thrashing from him.
Oh man, I thrashed that run horribly.
No,
I need to get a more of a longer length video.
Yeah.
As tonight's guinea pig, it was relatively painless.
Yeah. The point was we weren't trying to tear you apart. We were using that as an illustration for others so that, because we've run into these patterns when we were working with our clients all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what, Leonard? I saw a lot of you and somebody I worked with today. I'm sorry, Paul. I saw somebody that I worked with, a lot of you and a lot of people that I worked with today. Okay.
Yep.
So this is an excellent opportunity to not only learn more about your own skiing, but to be honest about it. I really cannot emphasize, especially with the new standard where you actually have to do a task and then explain what you liked and didn't like about it or what you were trying to do. That is an integral part of the new standard now.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that honesty. Because if you'd say, no, man, that was really awesome. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and I am not twisting it all at the top of the turn. And you're going to get the side eye like, what? What are you talking about? That wasn't the same video, but that wasn't the same thing we just saw, right? And that's going to make it very, very difficult for you to get that pin, right? So, yeah.
Hey,
And the
Chuck,
more
it's
you
coming
learn
up on
about-
8:45 or so,
Yeah.
or 7:45 or whatever.
Yeah. If you look at yourself, these are things also that you're going to be seeing in other people. Yes. And
Yes.
frankly, your peers are the people who are going to be doing your exam with, and that's who you're going to have to do your MA on.
Oh yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Great session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.